Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
On the 26th of September 2012, Los Angeles police responded to a 911 call in Los Feliz from a concerned member of the public who had heard a woman screaming from inside of a house. In the driveway of the property, they found a man, dead, lying on the ground. Inside the home, an elderly woman had been beaten to death in one of the bedrooms. Her pet cat was found in the bathroom, also beaten to death. Both deceased people were quickly identified. The elderly woman was 81-year-old Kathy Davis, the owner of the house, and the man in the driveway was 28-year-old actor Johnny Lewis, who had been staying with Kathy for a few days. Born in 1983 in L.A., Johnny's acting career started when he was only 6 years old. He was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid, and his mother recognized that he had the potential to become a star in Hollywood. Several casting agents agreed, resulting in Johnny being offered small acting roles, first in commercials and then in popular TV shows like Malcolm in the Middle and the Nickelodeon series Drake and Josh. Later on, he featured on episodes of Criminal Minds and The O.C. Even while Johnny was becoming more well-known in the acting community, he didn't get sucked into the LA lifestyle the way that many of the up-and-coming stars did. He was true to the stereotypes in several ways, though, starting up a relationship with singer Katy Perry and living in an area of Hollywood that was nicknamed Frat Row. However, he kept to himself and he wasn't especially into partying. In an interview with Los Angeles Magazine, one of Johnny's close friends said, quote, "That's what made Johnny special. No drugs, no alcohol, just poetry and philosophy." By 2009, Johnny had been starring in the drama series Sons of Anarchy for 2 seasons, and he was now in a long-term relationship with actress Diane Marshall Green. But he decided it was time for a change. He had just discovered that he and Diane were expecting a child, and he wasn't a fan of the recent violent storylines his character in Sons of Anarchy had been given. His character name, by the way, was Half-Sack, and it means exactly what you think it means. He wanted to step away a little bit from acting and spend some time with Diane as they built a family together, and he even began to write a novel. Unfortunately for Johnny, things did not go to plan. Diane gave birth to a baby girl who the couple named Culla May in 2010, but during this time, their relationship began to fall apart. Instead of enjoying becoming a family, Johnny and Diane entered a legal battle for custody of Culla, which Diane ended up winning. Late the following year, Johnny got into a motorcycle crash. He received a medical examination afterwards, which did not find any symptoms of a head injury. But Johnny also refused to get any more MRIs of his head. And sometimes when he was speaking, he would suddenly begin to talk in a British accent. According to Johnny's family, he was never the same after that incident. An incident, by the way, in which he was not wearing a helmet. In early 2012, Johnny had his first brush with the law. He was staying in an apartment owned by his parents, and he suddenly decided to break into the neighboring condo. 2 men inside the condo told him to get out, but instead of leaving, Johnny picked up a glass bottle and started hitting them with it, resulting in his arrest. He was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, trespassing, and burglary. During his time in the Twin Towers Correctional Facility, Johnny tried to take his own life, and he was sent to spend 72 hours in a psychiatric ward. When he was discharged from the ward, things did not get better. Johnny started to show a strange hypersensitivity to light, and went as far as disabling the fuse box in his parents' condo so that he could spend all day in the dark. He had a second suicide attempt, tried to break into somebody else's apartment a second time, physically assaulted a random man on the street, and at one point, he was seen walking straight into the ocean while still fully clothed. Ordinarily, any normal person seeing that might think he's so high he could duck hunt with a rake. But remember the non-head injury that he had recently suffered. I'm not saying that was the cause of his sudden bizarre behavior, but I'm not saying that either. That summer, Johnny received treatment at the Ridgeview Ranch, a drug and alcohol treatment facility that also catered to people experiencing psychological distress. He started a course of medication to treat bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. During July, Johnny wrote in his journal about the improvements he was noticing, saying, "Felt more whole today, more complete, like parts of myself had been stolen in my sleep and scattered all over the world, and now they've begun to return." In fall, Johnny was sentenced to a year in prison for the assault charges against him, but because the facility was overcrowded, he served less than 2 months of his sentence. His loved ones were concerned about how he would adjust after being released from jail, so his father organized for him to spend some time living at an LA residence called the Writer's Villa, which was a popular place for actors and writers in the area to spend time. In fact, Johnny had stayed there before a few years ago and enjoyed it. The owner of the Writer's Villa was 81-year-old Kathy Davis, who had been inviting guests to stay at the house on 3065 Lowry Road for 3 decades. Some past famous guests that you may recognize: Val Kilmer, Parker Posey, Paula Poundstone, and Chris Parnell. They all lived at the villa when they were on the rise, enjoying the company of Kathy Davis. When Johnny left prison, he immediately began to stay with Kathy, but only a few days into his stay, his behavior took a turn for the worse, and it was clear he was in distress. Although it was never confirmed what happened, Johnny's loved ones guessed that he might have tried to disable the house's fuse box because of his light sensitivity, causing Kathy to confront him. When first responders found Kathy and Johnny's bodies on the 26th of September 2012, Johnny had only been out of prison for 5 days. From the injuries both people had sustained and the reports of eyewitnesses from earlier that day, it was clear to investigators what had happened. Johnny had attacked Kathy in her bedroom, choking her and then fatally bludgeoning her. He hit her with so much force that he destroyed half of her face and broke her skull, leaving pieces of her brain visible on the carpet around her body. After killing Kathy, he also bludgeoned her cat to death. Then Johnny had gone into the yard of one of Kathy's neighbors, who he had introduced himself to earlier. He then attacked the neighbor and a man who had been hired to paint the house and chased them around the house. The victims reported that they had tried to fight him off, but they felt that he was completely immune to pain. Once the neighbors fled inside their home, Johnny went back to the Writer's Villa. There were no eyewitnesses to the events that took place next, but whether Johnny jumped off the villa's roof or fell accidentally, he plummeted 15 feet onto the concrete of the driveway, and he died from his injuries at the scene. Because of the circumstances surrounding Johnny's death and the fact that he had brutally murdered an innocent lady shortly before dying, many media outlets assumed that Johnny had been under the influence of some sort of mind-altering drugs during the incident. In an LA Times article, it was stated that the investigators believed he had been taking a type of synthetic drug which had caused hallucinations. However, these theories were quickly disproved. Johnny's autopsy toxicology reports came back clean, with absolutely no evidence of drugs in his system at all. With the realization that Johnny's actions seemed to be the result of mental health issues, the public blame shifted towards the actor's parents. Both his mother and his father were Scientologists, members of a cult that's notorious for discouraging people with mental health issues from seeking conventional treatment from psychologists and psychiatrists. However, Johnny's father publicly denied these accusations, emphasizing that he had actually done the opposite. He encouraged Johnny to get treatment, which was confirmed by Johnny's lawyer, Jonathan Mandel. In an interview with CBS News, Jonathan stated, quote, "I give a lot of credit to Johnny's parents. They were really strong in trying to help him out. They really went to bat for him, but I guess they couldn't do enough." Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy, made a public statement the day after the tragedy. saying it was a tragic end for an extremely talented guy who, unfortunately, had lost his way. I wish I could say that I was shocked by the events of last night, but I was not. I am deeply sorry that an innocent life had to be thrown into his destructive path. That is 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, that's my name. I'm the host, and thank you for taking the time to listen. If you're on a binge, don't let me rambling along here stop you. Keep right on moving to the next episode. If not, if this is the end of your trip here with 10-Minute Murder, just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen. And be sure, if you do enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy this episode, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening if that's possible. Your positive feedback helps the show grow. You can find out what 10-Minute Murder is up to, all the pictures, there's a blog, and all miscellaneous things at 10minutemurder.com. You can also email me, joe@10minutemurder.com. If you'd like to ask me any questions, send me story ideas, recipes, whatever it is that you want to send me, you can do that if you email me, joe@10minutemurder.com. Thank you for listening to another episode. I will see you on the next one.